Hello guys, welcome to Selenium Automation Concept. So today I am going to discuss one important concept in core Java, that is called static binding versus dynamic binding. Okay, why it is called so static and why it is called dynamic. Okay, so we'll take one example for each category, and we'll try to demonstrate that why static binding and why dynamic binding is. Okay, so before going to example, let's have a quick walkthrough on that. That static binding is also familiar as a compile time binding, early binding, or method overloading. So basically, in the it comes under the polymorphism in core Java. So which is having two important concepts. One is the method overloading, and another is the method overriding. So method overloading is also known as the static binding, compile time binding, and early binding. So sometimes in the interview it is being asked that okay, what is static binding? So if we are not familiar with this phrase, right? Then sometimes it will be like a bouncer that okay, I know that method overloading, but never heard that what is static binding or compile time binding. So basically these are the similar thing. Okay, and why it is called so we'll see through example. And in theory, if we try to figure it out, so basically why it is called compile time binding, compiler is able to figure it out, the call or binding at compile time. Okay, and unlike this, this method overriding is called as a runtime binding, because compiler cannot figure it out. Okay, that which object is being assigned to the reference variable. Okay, so it will be only I mean they will be able to know during the runtime only. Okay, so that's why I mean it is called the runtime binding or dynamic binding or late binding. Okay, so these are basically the same concept. Okay, so in concept is the method overloading, and all the method overloading and method overriding comes under polymorphism. Okay, so let's take an example for each category and we'll see that why it is called so. Okay, so let me open that Eclipse. As usual, I'm going to create one package over here, and first we'll discuss that method overloading, and which is called the static binding. So I'm taking the static binding. Okay, now we'll take a create one class. Okay, so in the static binding, so as this is the main comes from the polymorphism method overloading concept. Okay, so what does it mean method overloading? So basically we are trying to achieve a certain goal, okay, but in different ways. Okay, that's why it is called the method overloading. Okay, so here basically we will create the same function name. Okay, but having different arguments. Okay, so that is called the method overloading. So here public static void, say function. Okay, I'm taking the method as print. Okay, or let's say a simple sum I'm taking, right? And here I'm giving one parameter called integer a, right? Now here I will give integer a and take one more here b. So I will simply print over here sum of two digits. here plus a plus b. Okay. And in the method overloading concept, here method name should be same, okay, and only argument will be varied. Okay, so here first I took that one, I am keeping the method name as same, but I will vary the arguments. Okay, plus c. Well, so let me put it non-static only. So I have to create the object of this class. B equals to new b. So when I am pressing that dot, as this is the non-static method I created, so in order to access the non-static method, I have to create the object. Okay, so here when I will create the object, here it is giving, right, that okay, which method I want to call. So if I simply call like this way, okay, and here if I pass 2 comma 3, so during compile time itself, that compiler knows that okay, which method I have to call. Though we have a same method name over here, but based on the arguments, it will be decided during the compile time itself. Okay, now whether if I pass, let's say 4, so it will be decided that it is going to call that this method. Okay, but if I pass another argument, so here itself it will throw the error. Okay, here itself it is suggesting the remove argument to match either this or this. Okay, so during compile time itself it is being decided that which method it is going to call. So that's why it is called the static binding or compile time binding or early binding. Okay, okay, run the same method. So as you are seeing, like okay, so I have passed here 2 3 and 2 3 4, but it is printed here this. Why? Because I mean in string, right? If I do like this way, I didn't convert it to integer, so it will be taken care of the string and it will simply do the string concatenation, right? Okay, so in order to do that, can do one thing. Integer dot percent a. Okay, I think we don't require. Let me check. Yeah, so as you're seeing like that, I mean when I put the bracket, otherwise it was taking as a string and it is simply doing the concatenation and then print it. Okay, so I put it on within the bracket and it summed up and it printed the value. Okay, so this is basically I mean example for static binding. So here when I am vary the arguments, if I give some invalid argument over here, so it is throwing the error. So that means compiler itself suggesting me to see I mean if you want to call this method, then you have to pass this type of argument and number of arguments should be 2. If you want to call this sum, then you have to pass the 3 integer arguments over here. If I simply reduce or increase the number of arguments over here, here itself it will throw the error. That's why it is called the compile time argument, compile time binding, sorry. Okay, now we will see the other one, that is the late binding, or why it is called so. Okay, so before going to discuss that late binding concept, we have to remember that here there method overriding concept should be applied. Okay, so what is method overriding? Method overriding is basically one parent class should be there and one child class, and child class should extend the parent class. So inheritance concept we have to apply over there. So let's create one package, or yeah, better to create one package. So here late binding we will create one class. Okay, so in late binding here we have to apply the inheritance concept, correct? So what for that I'm taking two class over here. One is parent, okay, and another one is I will take child. Now in child class, okay, in child class it will extend parent, okay, and in the parent class what I will take, I will take one method, public void, let's say print, simple print method I'm taking. Okay, and here I'm giving one print statement that this is parent class, and same method I will take over here, and I will just change that print statement child, this is child class. Okay, now here parent class and child class. Okay, now here what I'll do over here, okay, so I will create an object of parent class, right, equals to new parent sorry caps, yeah. Now I'm writing one statement over here. I will explain that parent PR equals to new child. I will tell that okay, PR1 equals to new child. Okay, I will tell why I okay. So basically here when as I told, late binding is nothing but the method overriding concept. Now what is method overriding over here? So method overriding means there will be one parent class and one child class which is extending the parent class. Okay, now if both parent and child class have the same method name, right, and if we create the child class object and try to invoke that method, correct, then this method in child class will override on the parent class method. So that is called the method overriding. Okay, so here now coming to the late binding or runtime binding. Okay, runtime, yeah, late binding or runtime binding, dynamic binding or method binding. Okay, so now what is that? Basically here I created one object of parent, right, one object of parent, and I'm invoking the print method. So parent class object. So this is very straightforward. As we are creating the object of this class and calling the method, obviously it will print that this is parent class. Okay, but when I am coming to this statement, that I am creating object reference variable of the parent class but assigning child class object. Okay, and then I'm invoking the print method. Okay, so what it will print, as child class object being assigned to the parent class reference variable. Okay, so that means if I invoke this method, that means we create a child class object, and now parent class reference variable referring to that only. Okay, so what it will do, it will basically call this method only, and this method in turn will override this method, so it will print here this. So but during compile time it won't be understood that okay, which method would be called, this method or that method. It will be only decided during the runtime. Okay, so that's why it is called the late binding or runtime binding. Okay, child class object assigned to parent class reference variable. Okay, so and there is another name also for this, that is called the top casting. Why top casting or up casting? Why top casting or up casting? So here this example I can tell. Okay, it's called top casting or up casting. Okay, why so? Because here parent class reference variable. Okay, so it is referring to the child class. Okay, so that's why we are casting it to super class over here, so that's why it is called the top casting or up casting. Okay, so if I so first print out statement, here I created one simple object of this parent class and calling it. So as it is straightforward, it will print that this is parent class. But the second one, I created the parent class variable but assigned the child class object. Okay, so it will invoke and this method. Okay, and it will print this is child class. Let's see. Correct. So as I told, so this one simply as it is. Okay, it will call this parent class method. Okay, but the second one, as I assigned the child class object to parent class reference variable, so it will straight away invoke this method and it will print that this is child class. Okay, so that's it for this session. Thank you.